Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to Sisters.
Sisters.
They were never such devoted
Sisters.
Oh, I love that.
I'm so cute. Oh my gosh.
Yes, you are. I'm so happy to be here with you right now.
Man, I'm always happy to be with you too.
We figured out our technology, I think.
I think we did.
Yeah.
We did have some technical difficulties, didn't we?
We did, and it's mostly my fault, so we'll
No.
understand. Yes, 100%. You're like the technological wizard, and I only strive to be you.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're so sweet.
It's true, though. It's true, 100%. Okay, so here's the thing. Today,
Yes.
I'm going to bring something up. You know how we do. And I like to bring up something, and sometimes that sparks memory. Sometimes I bring up a memory. And then I like to dig into that brain of yours.
Dig on in.
Dig on in. So what I want to know from you is, we've talked a lot about your different senses, and I want to know a little bit more about the taste sense. Okay, so I'm going to bring up something for you that I noticed. You had something that was quite spicy, and it looked like your brain exploded. And I'm not sure if that's true, but it felt like I've had spicy things, and you're thinking like, you're like, oh my God, that's so spicy. But yours, you looked like you fritzed or something. It was a weird moment. And I remember being like, I think maybe we broke her. And I don't even remember the exact day of this, but I just wanted to talk to you about this. So I want to know a little bit more.
Yeah, my mouth didn't know what was happening. It was totally confused. And it was like, what in the living world have you put inside of me, and why? Like, why, Megan? It just did not like me. And it was all I could think about. It was the loudest thing in the room, in my brain, was the spice. And the worst thing is, like, if it gets on your lips and you're trying to not notice it, but then you notice it, and it's just all that you can notice. And then God forbid you get any of it on your hands, and then you touch your eyes or you touch some other part of your body, and it's just like, that's now burning. Which I think is pretty common for most people that don't know spicy foods. There's a show on YouTube. It's called Hot Ones. Have you ever seen this, Michelle?
Okay. Yes. My son, your nephew, like made me watch this, and I was so impressed with it, and also laughing because there were some people, like there was an English guy who's a cook or something. He was on
Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, and he was hilarious because he almost died.
He's
like,
probably
honestly
the best one they've ever had. They brought him on again.
Trevor Noah is like, he's like, oh, that's so sweet that you're a white man trying to eat something spicy. You did pretty well. He had no reaction whatsoever to any of the spices. And then the chef guy, what did you say his name was?
Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, is he somebody?
Michelle. Is he somebody?
Well, I mean, he must be. He's on that show. He's obviously famous. I'm sorry, Gordon Ramsay. I don't know who you are, but anyway, he was on it, and he was hilarious.
Oh.
What? What are you
sorry,
doing?
I was like,
what's happening?
Shots fired. No one doesn't know what Gordon Ramsay is. Oh,
I'm so sorry. I should know.
He's like the Hell's Kitchen guy, and I don't know. He's the British guy who always like screams at people, and is like, "You're the worst. You're the biggest." Like he just screams at them.
Well, he was being really nice on this. Maybe that's why I didn't recognize him.
That's probably it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, anyway, sorry, Gordon Ramsay. Not like I'm anybody who you're going to care that doesn't know about you, but anyway, he's on this show, and he's really like in pain.
Yeah.
So much pain, which I felt bad about. So then I was thinking about you. So go back, not spicy, but just like peas or whatever new thing you're eating as a kid, artichokes, whatever, something with like different texture or different flavor. And I was thinking to myself, like, is that similar to you? I mean, I don't know. Was it hard to try things that were new? And
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we look at kids who've got differences going on and they only want to have chicken nuggets. Now, I think this might be all kids everywhere now, so I don't think it's really like unusual, but I feel like trying new things was hard for you.
Okay, so it was hard in the sense that it was time consuming. So, you know how like I catalog the stickers, right?
Yeah.
The same thing goes for food and for texture. I'm cataloging every single bit in my mouth and how it tastes, how it feels, the size, you talk about peas, right? Like how it squishes with your tongue versus with your teeth. If you have more than one pea in your mouth, what does that feel like? How many can you squish at once? And like, can you squish multiple but keep some that are not squished? Like there's a whole process that is happening when I try a new food.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you want to actually know that age-old question of how many peas can I get in my mouth at once? Is that what you're saying?
No.
No. Okay. But you're
No,
saying
I want to know. So I want to know what sensation it feels like on the different parts of my mouth. So your tongue has like different taste buds in different regions. So like you'll taste salt in one region versus sweet in another versus say, you have all these different taste buds that are much more
like attuned to certain flavors or some. Okay.
Yeah. So like if you were to put salt on the tip of your tongue versus like the side of your tongue versus all the way in the back of your throat, like it's going to taste and feel different.
But how do you do that? I mean, I don't know.
You just place things carefully on your tongue, Michelle.
Oh.
You can just
is that what you do?
Yes, this is why it takes me so long sometimes when I have a new food, because I'm like trying it all out. If I don't have enough of the food, then I can't really tell you for certain if I like it or not, or what the experience is for me.
Because you need it on all 8 places or whatever it is in your tongue?
Yeah, I want to feel it like on all the different areas of my tongue because I want to know, does it tingle? I want to know what it feels like. Sometimes it feels electric. And then if you add if you add a fork into the mix and you add metal fillings for your teeth, then like that's a whole other thing. It's like it actually hurts sometimes because you're putting metal on metal and it's like, ah. So, you have to be really careful about how you eat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really an in-depth experience for you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm imagining 8-year-old Megan sitting at the dinner table. We're all talking about world events or something. And you're cataloging.
Yeah, I'm like putting mashed potatoes on the tip of my tongue and seeing how that feels. And then I'm putting more mashed potatoes on the sides of my tongue. And then
let me ask you this in all honesty. Like once you do that, is it cataloged? Or do you continue to catalog? Like, are you at my Thanksgiving table and this is all I should be thinking? Is that you're like putting the mashed potatoes, of course, that you've made because you make them perfectly for your tongue. What?
No. So once I have cataloged it, then I know where is the best place to then put that food to get the maximum bang for my buck. Okay.
So at no time have I ever conceived of food this way. So I'm just trying to process right now. I'm just getting into Rosey's brain. I want to dig all the way in.
Just dig right on in.
So I'm just like picturing going to a nice dinner out. Okay. So we're there and you're eating, I don't remember what you had, but you probably
got a French dip.
You got a French dip. So what happens to you? You're eating the sandwich. And do you remember?
Sandwiches are a little bit different for me because they're all kind of combined. So you don't get quite the same experience with a sandwich. What I can tell you is that I'd ordered some Pellegrino because I love the bubbly water.
Yeah.
And I instantly knew it was flat because I could not feel it tingling on my tongue. And I was like, something's wrong with this Pellegrino. Because like
That's true. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, because like I usually really love like taking a sip and then like letting the bubbles fill up my cheeks and bubble all over my cheeks and then slide down my esophagus and then like it's bubbling all the way down my esophagus and like it just feels amazing. Like it's incredible. It's like the best. It's like there's an explosion in my mouth and a party for everyone to join. It is the coolest feeling. And so when I took a sip and that did not happen, I was very disappointed.
Okay. You were nonplussed.
I was non-happy. What's nonplussed? Is that a math term?
It probably is. I don't know. You're not excited about it, but okay.
Yeah.
So you're there. So then does that ruin the whole night?
It would have back in the day, but I have been learning to radically accept prior to all of my therapy and whatnot. Yeah, it would have ruined the whole night because I'm wanting something very specific and I'm expecting it and then it doesn't happen and I can't let it go because I'm like wanting that. And I also didn't know how to speak up for myself, so I wouldn't have asked for a new one, but I just asked for a new one this time and that was fine.
And you got one.
I did.
Okay, so then...
But like, can we go back to your Thanksgiving for a second? Because I feel like that was like left out. Like that was the hanging chad of this conversation and we didn't, yeah, I'm not this creep who like, I'm not this crazy person who's like, cataloging everything that you make. But what I am doing is like, I've cataloged these foods. So like if I have my fork and like, let's say I grab some potatoes, like I know where in my mouth to place the potatoes for the maximum satisfaction of that piece of food. Or I know, hey, I need to have some turkey, but I need to have the cranberry sauce first, then the turkey, then I put it on my mouth on like the center of my tongue where the sweet spot stuff is, and it just tastes delectable. But if I do the turkey first and then the cranberry, not as good of a bite. Because the quest, Michelle, is to find the perfect bite. That perfect bite that you're just like, like it's satisfying. It's just like, yes, I can die a happy person because I've had this amazing bite.
Okay, so I just have to stop us here for a second.
Okay.
In 0 moments of my life have I ever even conceived there was a perfect bite.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm kind of jealous right now. Like I think that's really cool to have this moment of like there's a perfect bite that like even if you haven't achieved it, but maybe you have, I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, over and over again?
Oh, yeah. That's the whole goal is like every time you eat that you enjoy that perfect bite.
Wow.
Like if you've got this salty, you also have some sweet with it to balance it out. Like whenever you get like a barbecue chip bag, right? A bag of barbecue chips. And you know how like there's that flavoring that's on the chips? Like the coating?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever seen chips that are more coated than others?
Sure. Absolutely.
And do those ones taste better to you than the ones that are not as much coated?
It depends. Sometimes it's a little too coated. Sometimes it's not enough coated. I feel like there's maybe my perfect bite is like a Melba toast. No, but it is a little bit in between maybe. I mean, sometimes it's too much flavor for me.
Even if it's too much flavor, it's the fact that like all of the flavor is hitting my tongue uniformly or even if it's an explosion of flavor, like the perfect bite doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly tasty, but it's about the chemical reaction that's happening in my mouth.
Interesting. So you're saying that it isn't so much that there's a certain amount of it, it's that it's how it actually connects with your tongue.
Yeah, like how it physically feels. That's the thing with like peas. I just love feeling a bunch of these peas like kind of rolling around. I don't even know how to describe it without it sounding dirty, but I just love feeling these things roll around in my mouth.
So it's not just the flavors, it's also the texture or the experience of it.
Yeah, it's all of it, but it's all about how my mouth interprets what that piece of food is.
Okay, so we've dug in a little bit, but I'm going to dig in a little bit further.
Okay.
How in the actual heck do you have a conversation with anybody while all this is going on in your head? That just seems, it seems like you are having the best time. And I wish, like, I mean, I don't mean to say like I'm not having a good time eating. I enjoy eating.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I chew things and I enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say zero of the things are happening. Maybe I'm just not as attuned. I mean, I want to be now. Like, I feel like it's a big house circus and there's like a ringmaster that you might be.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like multiple, like they would have the elephants in one place and they'd have the lions and everybody's watching all these things, these acts happening. And I'm thinking like you have the big top.
Yeah. Michelle, there is a party in my mouth and everybody's invited. All of the things are invited to like come and join and like be a part of this cool party and like let's see
But then we're asking you to talk to us and pay attention to us at the same time. Why would we ever do that? You're having the best time ever.
This was my problem growing up because I was cataloging all these new foods. And so I was so focused on it that like I wasn't paying attention to what you guys were talking about. Remember, like I'm also translating things into visuals. So I'm creating these visual images when these things are happening in my mouth as well. So I have visuals of what water feels like. It's not necessarily water, but I have a visualization of what it feels like.
Okay, so when it's happening. Wait, we got to like slow this down, back this train up. What is the visual with water? Can you explain it? Can you take a minute to try to let us all in? Because that's something I've never even thought about.
Gosh, like, okay, so I'm trying to think if I take a sip of water.
Yeah.
Of like the bubbly water.
Oh, the bubblies. Okay,
yeah, the bubbly water. Well, yeah, regular water is something different. There's still a visual that happens, but it's more muted.
Okay.
But it's almost like, you know those screensavers that kind of starburst out when they're just like pew all over the place and like it almost looks like a firework.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm seeing, but not in color. I'm seeing it in black and white. And it's almost like I'm seeing the ends of the firework explosion.
Cool.
That's why I love having bubbly water, because it's like I get to see these really cool things in my head.
You were sitting next to me that night in like a very squished booth with all the family. And so while we were sitting there, this is what was happening?
Yeah. Well, sometimes. That specific Pellegrino wasn't as bubbly as it normally is.
Oh.
So it was a little more subdued. But yeah, like when I'm drinking something bubbly with you.
How long do the things you're viewing go on?
Not long, just as long as the sensation's going on. And that's why sometimes I miss what you guys are saying, because like I'll hear a little bit of it, but then I miss some of it because I'm like, ooh, fireworks.
Well, you know what I have to do now, right? I have to give you some examples and be like, tell me this, tell me what you see.
Okay.
Are you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Peas, because that's like, we've talked about those a million times. Peas. What are you seeing?
Well, with those ones, I'm seeing peas, but like I'm seeing them in like a much larger scale with like little dimples, and they're kind of like just rolling around and they're smiling and they're just like, hi, what you doing? Oh, I'm enjoying this over here. It's like they're in a little bouncy castle in my mouth. So that's what I see. But if it's just stationary, I just see the peas kind of like a little pyramid. But as soon as they start rolling around, they're like, ooh. Those
Okay,
ones were green. Those ones were green that time. That one wasn't black and white.
All right. So then my other question is, have you ever seen anything a little off-putting or scary when you're eating them? When you're eating that thing? Like, I'm wondering if there's anything where you're like, oh, yeah, passion fruit, that's a real stickler.
Cilantro.
Oh.
I see a bar of soap and I see suds in my mouth. It's disgusting.
Okay.
Ugh. It's just...
You can't do it. A lot of people feel that way, but I don't know if they see it. So that's for you. Okay.
Yeah, I see a bar of soap every time I eat that stuff. Like, and I can tell if it's in my food because I start seeing soap.
So if you have something that's mixed, like a lasagna, do you see something when things are mixed together, or is it simply that they're separated and you see them when they're separated?
It's a good question because I just had lasagna last night. I'm trying to think back. I feel the slimy texture of the noodles. Actually, I wonder if this is part of the reason why I don't particularly like lasagna. Like, it's not my go-to.
Sure.
Because...
Sorry for all those lasagna lovers out there.
No, it tastes fine. It's not about that. It's just that I think because it's so slippery and it's just so overwhelmingly all in my mouth that like I don't like have really an experience with it, so I just like gulp it down quickly because I don't know. It's a good question, Michelle.
I wonder, because you talked about the sandwich earlier.
Yeah.
And you had like, nothing to say. And I'm like, I wonder if it's like more than one thing.
Yeah.
Or like, let's
because it has to be
right?
It has to be a specific sandwich if I like it, right? Like if I want to eat it, you know, like I'm thinking of a sandwich that has like a domed bread and then it's got like shredded lettuce on it. And I enjoyed that because I could at least, when I took a bite, I could feel the shredded lettuce and it didn't feel quite so homogenous. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it didn't feel so
mixed.
Not even mixed. Like it just, a sandwich, like, so the French dip, for instance, right? The one that we ate the other day, it just felt like one thing. I wasn't going into it thinking, oh, I like it how it feels on this part of my face or on that side or this side, or, you know, I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, okay, it's a French dip. And it was all one giant thing. But if there had been lettuce, like that's when the guy told me, oh, I put the coleslaw on the French dip on the sandwich. And I was like, oh my God, I did it wrong. Because if I had put the coleslaw in the sandwich, that might have been a game changer for me.
Wow.
Because I told you that, remember? I was like,
yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I put it on the sandwich. And I was like, I just ate it out of the bowl. What was I thinking?
Wow.
Yeah.
I am still unclear at the end of this episode what is going on in your brain. I'm going to say that right now. I have not figured this out yet. I feel like this might be episode 2.0 that needs to happen. Well, there's something about this, and I want you to really take this and think about it if you remember. but and I don't mean that cruelly. I just mean to say we need you to do a little digging on this. And also potentially anyone listening might need to help us out with this, because there is something really important here about having things in singularity versus having things mixed together. Potentially, and or texturally similar. I don't know. Or maybe it's like cold, hot. I don't know. But I think there's something more to this. Eating with you as a kid was not easy.
It wasn't?
No.
What do you remember?
I remember that at no time could anyone count on you paying attention at dinner. Now, one might say that's normal for a child, right?
That checks.
But so food and conversation, or food and community, that was kind of connected in our family anyways. And I remember it was always a little bit of a struggle for you. So that's what I remember was that.
Yeah, because I was having a whole
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I was having a whole party.
Whole
party. No, I was having like a whole story going on in my mouth, right? Like it was way more interesting than what people were talking about. And I don't mean to be rude. It's just I'm not an auditory learner. So when people would talk, it was before I had a lot of knowledge and I didn't understand what they were saying. And there was this expectation that I would provide something interesting to the conversation. And I knew that I didn't have anything interesting, that I could come up with it quickly enough. If I sit with topics for a little bit and I kind of ponder them, or I talk about them, not ponder, because I don't ponder, let's be real. But if I'm allowed to kind of, as we're doing, talking around the whole issue, I can finally kind of come to what I'm feeling. But I was expected, this is how I interpret it, that there was an expectation that I should be able to banter and quip just as quickly as everyone else. And that was just not how my brain processed stuff. Like there was a reason why I didn't do debate. I did the speech side of it in high school, because coming up with arguments or coming up with interesting facts, like that's just not my thing. Like I'm terrible at improv. Like I can do dramatic improv, but I am terrible at like making things funny on the spot. You know, my brain just doesn't work that way. So the food was like a welcome friend, because I could have a whole conversation with the food in my mouth, and they weren't the food wasn't expecting me to come up with a funny retort, you know, reply. The food was just like, hey, we're here for your enjoyment and let's go, you know? And I'm like, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to pose something that I don't know if it's right, but is the French dip just a little bit familiar?
No, that French dip was not familiar. There was a French dip that I was remembering from Firebirds in Tucson. And
from 2010. No, just joking, but that kind of thing, right? Like a long time ago that you had cataloged. Okay.
Yeah, and it didn't taste like that. So it was kind of like, okay. It wasn't familiar. It wasn't the same friend that I had met all those years back. It was like, okay, you're new. I'm not sure how I feel about you just yet. You know, hey.
Whatevs.
Yeah, and it normally like the au jus, which is like the stuff you dip the French bread, the French dip into.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that usually has all of the chemical explosions in your tongue. And this specific au jus did not do that for me. So it was kind of like, okay. Like, so then it became just sustenance. It became fuel. The coleslaw was pretty exciting. I ate that first. And then like, I didn't put it on my sandwich.
Oh, man.
It's a strange thing to say that food has a personality, and that's part of the reason why I've been through recovery for an eating disorder. We could talk more about that down the road, but I would say in the past I would have been disappointed by the food experience, but I think I've come to enjoy the conversation now and the banter and the talking back and forth and just listening. And I wasn't as talkative, I think, as I normally am, because I think as soon as I stop eating, I probably get more talkative. But I've just started to learn to enjoy and listen to people, which was not my strong point for many decades. But it's different.
It's so interesting. I find this endlessly fascinating because many of the senses we've talked about over the times, I think I've had more or less connection with your understanding of it. But this is interesting to me in that I haven't fully grasped. I don't think I still do, to be honest with you, like even in this one conversation, but I'm very curious still to learn more, because I think this is the first time I've heard you talk about almost a relationship or a friendship, a kinship. This is something familiar, unfamiliar, but it's beyond just familiar and unfamiliar for you, it seems. And how high of an expectation you might also have, you know, in terms of what you our thinking might happen, in that exchange. And so it's really interesting. And I'm so grateful for you to share that and be vulnerable with that, because I imagine there are other people out there who do get that. We did a whole one on smell, and I am with you 100%. Nobody needs to be spraying any perfume. They're going to give me a headache. It's a whole thing. And I remember you saying something about like, I sniff it in and it's in my body. And and I get that. And so this one is really like, I'm going to have to think about this as I eat now. And I really
just
will.
Try it. Try taking some salt and putting a little bit of salt on the tip of your tongue versus the sides of your tongue.
I literally have never thought about this ever in my life. So I will do that for sure. And I'm really curious what our community might think about this, because I think this is really fascinating.
Yeah. And I think that this is also why ADHD a lot of times can go hand in hand with other disorders or other issues. I don't think it's uncommon to have an eating disorder because, you're absolutely correct. Like I did turn food I personified it. So then somehow I gave it a morality, and that's been the biggest challenge, is to say that food does not have a morality. There's no bad or good food. There's just food. And so for me to say I have a good or a bad experience with food, that's been a huge challenge to learn and to go through and to work through. And it might have just started off as like a bit of a coping mechanism for my ADHD. And then, if it doesn't get looked at early enough or kind of caught early enough, then it can grow into something bigger that has to be done later on in life. And so I think as we're looking at kids, those people in our community, if they've got kids who have ADHD or they know people, just to ask and be curious about what they're thinking and what they're processing. Because had someone probably asked me when I was younger, it might have changed the way I thought about it, because I didn't tell anybody. I've never even really thought about it even to this point of, oh, I thought they were friends. That's the first time I've ever even said that out loud. So I'll have a lot to talk about with my nutritionist. Hi, Caitlin.
But also, I do think we haven't really discussed ADHD on this podcast yet. So I think that will be interesting, because we've talked about being neurodiverse and that whole concept, but that is an actual designation you've had. I think we need to dive into a little bit more as well. But I just appreciate you taking time and talking through this and opening yourself up to this concept of what it means for you. And I know for me, as I listen to you, I always have some piece of it I relate to. I have things that I really don't enjoy eating or that don't feel good to me. I have a lot of food allergies. And so I remember falling asleep on my plate of lima beans and not drinking my milk. I think the lima beans were just because they were gross texture when I was 3. And the milk was because it gave me hives in my ears, and the people in the preschool didn't understand that. And there was brutality around that too, if you didn't eat or didn't do the things you were supposed to do. So I think this is definitely a conversation we can continue. And I want to thank you for opening up, because it always gives me something to think about. So I just appreciate you so much. And I'm so glad that we had this time together.
I'm glad we had this time together too, even though we're super far away now.
So far away, it feels like, for sure. Too far. Love you.
I love you too. Thanks everybody for listening to Sisters. This episode wraps up this series of exploring how I experience the senses through my neurodiverse lens, or brain, or whatever you want to call it. I hope you enjoyed this roller coaster of laughs and insights, and make sure to tell your friends about us if you enjoyed yourself as much as we did. Don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you're currently on, and guess what? Next week, we will be starting a new series all about ADHD and all of its symptoms. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, stay curious. Okay, so it was pre-spicy training.
Oh, you did spicy training?
Yes. So,
Do tell.
you know, we grew up with very limited spicy levels in our diet.
We had like garlic spicy level. That was it. Like how much garlic could you handle kind of thing. Yeah.
Which the answer is all.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the garlic. No, so Brian loves spicy foods, and during the pandemic,
your husband, Brian.
Yes, sorry, my husband loves spicy food, and I didn't. I avoided it very much so. And during the pandemic, I was trying to eat less meat, and I found this woman who does a specific diet, and she talked about needing spicy training, and that you just have to kind of little by little add a little more spice into your life and train your palate to partake in those spices. And I can confidently say that I enjoy spices now, like spicy food.
Wow.
And sometimes I think that something's less spicy than Brian does. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, there's not a lot of spice in this. And he's like, no, this is fine. So I think I might be getting better.
You've like trained yourself so well.
I have.